No two voyages across the open sea are ever alike, as any seasoned fisherman knows. Beneath the surface, the ocean still guards countless secrets and unexplored wonders. From bizarre finds to unexpected marine life, the contents of your nets can be full of surprises. On top of that, the open ocean is one of the toughest places to navigate. Conditions can shift from peaceful and quiet, like a small village at night, to wild and dangerous like Detroit on New Year's Eve. That's why most fishermen feel at least a bit of relief when they finally return to land after several exhausting days at sea. But when this fishing crew encounters something they would have never expected on their way back home, none of them hesitate to spring into action immediately. The fishing crew aboard the Golden Delight has experienced this to the fullest extent, but what they found in the water might just make it all worth it. Before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. They have been out on the open ocean for going on almost 2 full weeks now. This is a lot longer than normal, but they barely managed to catch anything the first couple of days, and they could not afford to return to the harbor empty-handed. These hard-working people don't have a lot of cash just saved up for days on which they would return empty-handed. Being a fisherman is a difficult and dangerous job, but it sadly doesn't have a salary that is sustainable. All of this in mind, the main problem is that, due to overfishing, there are often days where a lot less profitable fish is caught compared to just a few years ago, metaphorically and literally. So, they opted for a different approach and set course toward waters known for having fewer fishing vessels, hoping to boost their chances. The journey took some time, but fortunately, their gamble paid off. They arrived at a wide stretch of open sea, completely free of other boats, meaning they had the area all to themselves. As soon as their nets hit the water, they sensed they might have found something valuable. When they began hauling the net back in, it was clear this catch was heavier than anything they'd pulled in for nearly a year. With great effort, they finally dragged it aboard and stared in amazement at the huge pile of fish thrashing around on the deck. That first net was bursting with fish. They managed to catch the largest amount of fish they had ever got on a single fishing trip. The storage space was completely packed after only 2 days of fishing in this spot. The crew was overjoyed and were celebrating with every haul they got on board. Their luck just seemed to know no bounds those 2 days. Besides all the fish they hauled in, they also saw some other amazing animals out on the open waters. But the whales that pulled up beside their ship must have been the most spectacular by far. With the storage of the ship filled to the brim, they were finally ready to head back home. They couldn't wait any longer. Otherwise, the fish had a chance to go to waste, which would mean all of their efforts would have been in vain after all. They encountered very dangerous waters on their way home that were almost impossible to navigate. They had to make a detour to avoid taking a chance that they might never come back from. This added at least 2 more days to their trip. What this meant was first going back in the direction they came from to avoid the stormy water from overtaking them. When they were out far enough, they would be able to circle around the storm. They knew, however, that this would cost them much more time. This also did not mean they would be sailing through calm water, however. The storm was moving faster than they were, but it would mean that they would probably avoid the roughest and most dangerous parts of it. Luckily for them, the calculations of the captain were correct. Exhausted from being out on sea for this long and suffering from a severe shortage of fresh water and food, the crew was desperate to get home. But they knew that any land was still at least a couple of days away. They would have to hold out a little longer. They were lucky to be a well-stocked fishing boat at that point, because there was plenty of fish to eat, and the water they managed to catch from the storm would at last make sure they would not dehydrate completely on the trip if they managed to make haste back to shore. The rest of the crew spent their days playing cards or dice and looking out over the endless sea. With a bit of luck, they would sometimes see some sea life surface, but this is rare. They are bored and can't stand the smell of fish anymore. Luckily, they are only about a day away now, if what the captain says is true. They can't see any land as of yet, but they had spotted a couple of boats in the distance a while ago. They considered approaching them and asking them for some water, but this would only delay them further, and because they couldn't be sure that the people on the other boats had any water to spare, or would even be willing to share it with strangers, they decided to not take the risk and just head straight for the shore, determined to not let anything delay them more. Then, out of nowhere, they witness one of the most breathtaking sights unfold before them. A faint outline of land appears on the distant horizon. The crew erupts with joy, suddenly filled with renewed energy. They cheer and shout as if they had just hit the jackpot. While the rest of the crew celebrates wildly, one of them remains fixated on the view ahead. He realizes that he's finally close to returning home. But just then, something breaking the surface of the water grabs his attention. Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much. It takes him a few moments to adjust to what he's seeing. It is a beautiful and obviously mature dolphin. Now, this in itself is not a rare sight. They had seen multiple already on their trip, and almost every time they went out on the water, they would encounter a multitude of these incredible creatures. These majestic creatures are fairly common where they would normally catch their fish. They always had to be careful to not accidentally catch one in their nets. This had happened to them a couple of times before, but they were luckily always able to set it free again in relatively good condition. But there was something off about this particular dolphin. It seemed to be struggling to move or to dive back down. It only takes the perceptive crewmate a couple of moments to understand what is going wrong for this normally so majestic creature. Its tail seems to be caught in a big and heavy fishing net. This was probably discarded by another fishing boat, or maybe even by them. They, too, had lost a couple of their nets and other equipment to the unpredictable mistress that is the ocean. The dolphin looked extremely tired from carrying the heavy net around. Who knows how long he had been trapped in it? Obviously, long enough to be separated from his pod, because there were no other dolphins in sight when the crewman was looking around. When the crew member fully realized what he was witnessing, he immediately alerted the other crewmates. It took a little while for them to understand what was happening, because they were still celebrating the sighting of land to their heart's content. The crew spotted the dolphin just as it was about to pass them. This would have been their chance to catch it and help it if they were closer, but there was still a sizable distance between them and the creature. It would be impossible to quickly catch it. When everybody on the ship was fully aware of the presence of the struggling dolphin, it had already passed them by. It was going in the opposite direction to them. Now that everybody knew what was going on, they had a decision to make. Was it really worth turning the boat around to rescue the trapped dolphin, knowing it would delay their return to shore? Or would they rather ignore the animal and continue their journey home? The choice was made in an instant, and the entire crew was fully on board. They decided to go after the dolphin. Some people might think that because they catch fish for a living, that fishermen have no regard for the lives of marine creatures. Fishermen appreciate and respect the sea. It and all the life in it are incredibly important to their survival, and they know that they can't live without it. It is kind of similar to a farmer and his cattle. He loves all his animals, even if he knows that he will eventually have to kill some of them. The captain quickly turns the boat around and starts chasing after the dolphin. They see that it is trying to dive multiple times, but it almost comes back to the surface almost immediately. It probably can't propel itself downwards with its tail trapped like that. The boat quickly catches up to the dolphin, and at first it tries to get away by changing direction. But after a couple of attempts, the dolphin just stays next to the boat calmly. The fishermen don't know if this is because the creature knows they want to help, or because it's just too exhausted to get away. The fishermen don't have a good way to get the creature on board, so they decide on using the very thing that is seemingly hurting this dolphin so much. They throw out their own net, and to their surprise, they manage to trap it on their first attempt. They pull the obviously tired creature on board without it struggling or protesting too much. When it's on the deck of the boat, they quickly undo it from their own net before they can turn their attention to the net that is still wrapped around its tail. It only takes 2 of the stronger crew members to hold the creature relatively still, while the deck leader takes his knife and carefully starts cutting the net away. It only takes him a moment to slice through a few of the thick strands, causing the entire net to slip off with ease. They quickly check the dolphin for any other injuries caused by the ordeal, but thankfully it appears to be unharmed. Now that its tail is free, the animal already seems more energetic and alert. The crew members quickly open the ledge on the side of the deck, and with a little pushing and shoving, they manage to get the dolphin off the boat and back into the water. It immediately dives deep down, and they can't see it anymore. Satisfied with their work, they quickly close the ledge and start cleaning up the deck, while the captain sets course back in the direction of land. This whole ordeal probably added at least 5 to 6 more hours to their journey, but everybody on the ship knew they made the right decision. As they make their way back to shore, a dolphin suddenly leaps out of the water beside the boat. They're nearly certain it's the same one they had rescued earlier. Given how smart these animals are, it wouldn't be surprising if this was its way of saying, "Thank you." When the crew finally returns to land after their tough journey, they don't just bring back a boat full of fish and a well-earned payday. They also carry with them a remarkable story and an experience they'll never forget. Now, they have a tale worth sharing. Did you enjoy the story? What would you have done if you were part of the crew? Would you have saved the dolphin, even if it meant delaying the journey home, or not? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Helping those in need is worth more than any reward. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next video. Have an amazing day.